Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football podcast. I'm Joe Devine. I love to look in your eyes, Jon Mackenzie, as I say my own name.
And you seem to be getting more and more rambunctious every week when you say it.
I'm Joe Devine.
Yeah, you're like...
And I'm delighted to be joined by Kaya Kaynak.
I didn't expect you to come to me. You were staring at John directly in the eyes.
I know. Yeah. I like to do that. I like to say my own name when I look at him. I like to say other people's names when I look at him. I just like to look at him.
It's just gaslighting, I think.
Yeah. Steve Hankey.
Hello.
Also, Jon Mackenzie's here. How about that? Now, what do we talk about today? There were 43 goals in Tuesday night's Champions League football. I do a whole caveat about time, where I am and when we are when we're recording things after the intro, so look forward to that. We discuss why, despite all of these Champions League goals, the new format is actually rubbish. Did we say that?
We discussed if it is.
I did a bit.
You sort of said that?
Yeah.
I think Steve's taken some editorial license here. Good Lord. I actually can't remember what we said, though, so look forward to finding that out. Arsenal doused Atletico Madrid with cold water, but oh, God, both before and during their game, right, Steve Hankey? We talk more broadly about how the Gunners deploy their left back.
Deploy is a funny choice of word, isn't it? Deploy.
Well, I guess in a sense they employ and they deploy.
They do.
You know, what can you say? There's also never mind, I won't make that joke. Now, listen, what's next? After the break, we talk about Manchester United's new goalkeeper and how good he is at keeping pingers out of bins. We used some youthful words, didn't
Bins. We binsed it.
And also we discussed the fact that you no longer need to say top when you say top bins.
I think you do. I think
bins.
it may be just that I've
heard shots described as absolute bins.
Absolute bins.
I don't think
could you just say bins?
I think you could.
Yeah.
This is what I've been doing in rematch. Is this where this is coming from?
Yeah. You've just been saying bins a lot.
I know, it was actually Rocket League.
It was Rocket League, yeah.
Yeah.
You kept asking one of our friends to bins? Bins? Put it in the bins? Top bins? Yeah. Anyway,
He didn't.
It's fascinating how language works, isn't it? After that conversation about Senne Lammens, we talk about Nottingham Castle, and then we talk about more castles. There's a castle element to today's show. Talk about castles a little bit. Disappointingly, I can't name many of them. And then we eventually get around to discussing Sean Dyche's appointment at Nottingham Forest, the tricky trees, and an early Premier League relegation prediction. Well, that makes it sound like we predict that Forest are going to go down. I can't wait for Forest fans to get to that bit of the episode and realise that no one predicts that. We all think they'll be fine. That's about it. That's the show, isn't it, Steve?
Indeed.
Oh, worth saying, I'm away for a couple of weeks. I will be back on Monday, the 10th of November. I read that like it was a sort of, that was my a judge reading out that I was going to be executed. I will be back.
It's worth mentioning that there will still be 2 episodes each week. A coterie of the expanded Tifo universe will be here with all of you, so do not fret.
That's John doing.
Using my
getting a
brain.
jump start.
Getting a bit of practice in, because in some of those episodes when I'm not here, you'll be in the hosting chair. In other episodes of JJ, you'll be in the hosting chair.
I'll have to become fluent in Hankalese.
That's true. Do you want a little lesson now?
Yeah, please.
Read what he's written and then tell him to go himself and say whatever you want.
But then you can never refer to the actual football team by their name. You have to refer by their nickname.
The tricky trees.
Yeah, exactly.
Say things like that. Yeah. Also,
the claret breads.
This is a serious point now.
Oh.
If the segment is about Arsenal, you really need to read through to make sure that we're not.
I think so. I think we found that out the hard way this week, didn't we?
My favourite part of today's show, by the way, this is an unsanctioned intro edition, is there's one point where Steve actually feels the need to turn his microphone back on and issue a statement that he didn't write the thing we said he wrote. Anyway, that was good. All right. Well, enjoy the show. See you in a couple of weeks, motherfuckers. Where else to begin, of course, Steve Hankey, with Arsenal, of course. Arsenal beating Atletico, didn't they, last night? Well, actually, more broadly, a very exciting evening of Champions League football. You text us just after the game's finished, John, presumably having counted on your abacus, to tell us that there had been 43 goals scored across the league phase fixtures. It's worth saying as a caveat, we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. I refer to, of course, the Tuesday evening fixtures. We haven't yet seen the Wednesday evening fixtures, and you'll be listening to this after, so you'll know the results. We don't. Although I do expect most people here and listening will will instead be watching Celebrity Traitors on Wednesday night, so probably won't know the results of the football anyway.
What's Celebrity Traitors?
What is Celebrity Traitors?
John. I've been apprehensive about the Traitors but I've got into it this series, and I think it is the greatest show on TV.
That's true.
Okay.
I want to back up Kaya there because every inch of me wants to not like it.
Yeah.
But I watched it with my wife the other day because there was nothing else, and we put it on, and then at the end of it, we kind of surreptitiously looked at each other, and we were like, "Okay, let's watch the other three." It's really good, and now I'm excited. Also,
it's like Mafia, is it?
Yeah, it's Mafia basically. It's Among Us.
You would love that. You would be so annoyingly good at that. It would make me mad.
Yeah, that's why he won't play Among Us with me because
I have a very specific approach when I play Among Us.
Yeah, you just vote me out every round.
If I'm whatever it's called,
the imposter in that game,
I immediately run as fast as I can to find Joe and kill him. Just to make the game competitive for everyone else.
Just pictured you as Pennywise the clown in my head after you say if I'm it, and that's quite the image I've got going on.
Yeah, I hide in drain pipes and peer out.
The other weird thing about Celebrity Traitors is the last time I watched programmed television, by which I mean it's on TV live, apart from
Never
sport.
sounded more like my granddad ever.
Last time I watched programmed television was 1947. They have 2 episodes a week on a Wednesday and a Thursday, which is such a great idea.
Yeah.
I love the idea of breaking with the tradition of just doing it once per week, because when you've watched on the Wednesday, all you want to do is watch on the Thursday, and then you've got the weekend, so it's fine to be let down softly.
They've really changed the way that TV is done, haven't they?
I think they have.
Some of them they do like weekly installments, but then they do the other binge drop one, and
sure,
it's always the opposite of what I think it's going to be. And then
I think the binge drop is less popular now, even with the streaming services that are making like premium series and limited series and releasing them. I think they are edging back to a time where they do it scheduled.
We talked about this with Lost, didn't we? When I rewatched Lost recently, and you were saying a big part of why it was so popular was because it was just so long running, and there was like a week that you would generate like conversation about the episode.
Oh man, Friday around the water cooler, everyone was chatting Lost. Of
appointment
course.
viewing, isn't it?
It was appointment viewing. Yeah, it is funny. Generally, this is a conversation I've had with JJ before. That how often, whenever a new medium is discovered or exported, in this case, it's the internet. How eventually, regardless of where you're posting the thing, you do just come back round to best practices of the previous thing, because it turns out that like when people were making TV shows for decades, they did work out quite good ways of retaining audiences.
Hype is quite important, I guess, right? It's like,
sure.
So imagine if we traditional craftsmanship for audio podcasting coming round to a bunch of silly boys on YouTube.
Not that, not that one. That one doesn't work. Radio didn't have any best practices; they were just on all the time.
I was going to say it would be bad if we did more and more episodes of the podcast.
It would be bad
because people would lose the hype. It would be like it's just another day, it's just another episode.
Yeah, there would be no exclusivity. Yeah. Whereas right now, they can't get enough of us, right?
Yeah, they're like 2. We've given them just that little bit extra, so they think, well, maybe 3.
You are the Claudia Winkleman of football podcasting.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
I think you should come in with like the Traitors hood on one of the next episodes.
I do dress a bit like Claudia, I have to say. I've just got this new fleece here. It's very thin.
Is Claudia famous for her fleeces?
No, but she just wears dark colours and looks cool, and I guess we're kind of alike in that way. Anyway, there were 43 goals across the premium TV programming last night, which was live sport, Champions League football. 4 of them were scored in the Arsenal game. But how many games were there with 6 on one side?
There was 3 games that had 6 or more goals.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Some of the crazier results I recall are Napoli lost 6-2 to PSV.
Correct.
Good Lord. And then the game that our colleague Seb Stafford-Bloor went to by Leverkusen, that was 7-2 PSG, right? Or 2-7, I guess, in PSG's favour. Some extraordinary results last night. Obviously, as we said, 4 of those 43 on Tuesday were scored in North London as Arsenal secured, writes Steve Hankey, a statement 4-0 victory against Atletico de Madrid. Let's not get into that again.
Oh my goodness.
It forms part of a healthy run of form for the Gunners, writes Steve. Which is true, I guess. I mean, we did talk on Monday about them kind of quietly securing another statement victory against Fulham, a game that I have heard 17 times since is exactly the game we drew last season, the game we lost 2 seasons ago. We're definitely going to win. They are 4 points ahead at the top. I mean, the Premier League table, I was just looking at it with Steve before. It I don't know. It's starting to look a picture for Arsenal fans, I think, because there's everyone, and then there's a 4-point gap, and then there's Arsenal, and I do.
But it was a 5-point gap to Liverpool at one point, though, wasn't
Sure.
there?
Yeah.
It's early still.
Things change quick.
Of course.
So just you watch out for that 5-goal game. Is it 5-4? Liverpool. They've lost 4 games.
4 games in a row.
They've lost 4.
Potentially 5 by the time this goes out.
Do they play tonight?
They do play this evening.
Who are they playing?
Eintracht.
Frankfurt away.
Hugo Ekitike derby.
They'll be fine, won't they? Well, listen, Steve continues, with wins over Newcastle, West Ham and Fulham, all of the big teams in recent weeks, Arsenal have gained 7 points compared to the corresponding results against those sides last season. Wow, I didn't even realise you'd written this when I mocked that a moment ago. This is seen in some quarters, Steve's house, as a crucial difference as to why this year could be their year, which I think is perhaps undeniably true, however frustrating that may be. Jon, let's start with you. Do you think, specifically related to the 43 goals, we'll come back to talk about Arsenal later, do you think this is related to the format shift, that there's so many?
We've just talked about how tried and tested formulas in TV programming
that's right.
always return. But
football's decided to go back to more goals per game.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was more fun before the 90s.
Yeah, it was, undeniably. I think the format has played a big role in this shift because, in obviously in the past you played 3 teams twice, and I guess there was a very specific level of each team, right? There was the good team, and then the one who would probably get the second place, and then the third one and the fourth one.
Yeah.
Now it's a bit more of a free for all, right? Where do you play 8 games in total?
I think so, right?
Yes.
Obviously, it's still theoretically divided into pots and stuff, but I think by throwing everyone together into the same league, you end up with a lot more chaos, a lot more jeopardy. So you're
never sure when to play for a draw either, I think. Right?
Well, I think there's certain situations where I think actually drawing is quite bad in this league format. So I think teams maybe are incentivized to go for wins.
Yeah.
And also I think if you're a team who isn't expected to be a favourite in a game, you just kind of think, well, let's go for it and see if we can cause an upset, and if we can, then great. But if not, nothing has really been lost.
I guess the trade-off is that, like, I don't, at the beginning of the season when the Champions League draw happens, I don't get the feeling of security that I understand what's about to happen for the next 6 months. It does feel a bit more chaotic in my mind. But then when I compare that to the start of a Premier League season, I don't know what all the next 20 coming fixtures are, and that doesn't make me think that I don't feel like I know where I am in understanding the process. So maybe just like some adjustment to it from an audience perspective over time.
I think so, but also the fact that it all eventually funnels into a knockout tournament, right? And I think Kaya and I were talking about this before we came on, and we were saying even 10 minutes before the end of the final fixture in the league stage, you don't know how everything's going to come out in the wash, right? Like a couple of goals can change a team's positions like incredibly. So I think it's almost got to a point where previously you could kind of game the system you could look quite far ahead. You could have a good idea of where you probably were going to, what your route was going to be and who the other teams were going to be. Whereas now it's kind of like, it doesn't really make much of a difference. And I think that probably just encourages teams to be a little bit more laissez-faire when it comes to like approaching games.
Do we like the, it's basically an American sport playoff system, isn't it? Like we've got the regular season right now, and then later we go into the playoffs, which, it is kind of fun, isn't it?
It is fun once you get towards the end of the regular season. Yeah. The early parts of the regular season aren't as fun. And I was at the Emirates last night for the game, and the atmosphere before the game, which, given that Atletico Madrid is a big team, you'd expect it to be pretty buzzing. And obviously, jokes about the Emirates atmosphere aside, like it wasn't that hyped as you might expect it to be.
Would it not be fair to say, though, that Arsenal are such an impressive, huge team that, like, Atletico de Madrid is no big deal, right? Like, winning 4-0 is like, it's water off a duck's back.
It's no Fulham away, I'll give you that.
No, absolutely,
Which I think is probably part of it, but also last season, Arsenal played PSG at almost this exact stage, I think, and the atmosphere for that game was quite weird as well, in the sense that obviously people were happy that Arsenal won the game, but they weren't quite sure what it meant, and it's a bit similar last night. Although it's a bit different in the context of Arsenal look like they're on a team that's building up towards a momentum that might take them towards a Premier League or a Champions League. But I guess just the context of not really knowing what any of this means right now feels, it kind of takes a bit of the merit away from not merit, but like the meaning away from the victory, in the sense that before in the 3-team group, in the 6-game group, if you beat Atletico Madrid, who probably would have been the pot 2 team in your group as Arsenal, at home 4-0, you've essentially got yourself qualified, which is a massive result, and you know exactly what it means. You know why it matters.
Is the flip side of that then that let's imagine you were in the previous system and you had just beaten Atletico Madrid and you're essentially qualified, that the stakes for the remaining group games really aren't that high, or the travel away to the smaller team doesn't really feel like a big deal?
People talk about this as if there weren't any dead rubbers in last season's league phase. There were, like Arsenal against Girona in the last game was a dead rubber, Liverpool against PSV in the last game was a dead rubber. Well, not as much for PSV because they had a chance of qualifying, but there were some dead rubbers towards. I admit, like the last 2 weeks or game weeks of the Champions League now are really exciting and they're fun to watch, but just these first 6 are just a bit weird and it's a bit hard to grasp.
Like them though. I don't know.
You would like them though,
no,
right?
But I think
you can explain why, but like I feel like that makes sense that you would.
Yeah, because you
don't have a team in them.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it also is like quite a nice excuse to just watch a game, almost that game on face value, right? And I think when you're so tied into the narrative elements, which I think we always are and always have to be, you almost watch a game through that lens, whereas it's actually quite refreshing to watch a game like Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid without there really being any narrative elements beyond the kind of the ones that you've talked about with Arsenal.
Nothing can get in the way of my dispassionate analysis now.
But I think as well, it does just throw up a load of like random games where it's almost like the handbrake is off, to use a Steve Hankelism. It's probably in the script somewhere.
How dare you? I do besmirch the name of our sister podcast as well.
Where does that come from, by the way?
It was Wenger talking about playing with the handbrake on and off. Arteta said it.
I've wondered that this week, Do you know what else I've wondered? I don't know if viewers will notice, but Steve Hankey's put on a much more physical performance today. He insisted that no one sit in front of him so that he could be captured in full essence.
In fauress, this is a listen.
Why is that?
Get out of my shop.
Anyway, no time to hear more from Steve. Let's. What were you saying, John? Sorry. You were just saying it's fun.
Yeah, it takes. You can take the handbrake off a little bit more. You get random fixtures that maybe you wouldn't really see, and I think it's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah. I quite like it as well, but then I do understand if you're a fan of a team that participate. We talk about this with videos, writing scripts all the time. Right? It's very important for the viewer to be able to understand what the stakes are early on, so that they can understand what to invest or what they might get from something. It's about how people make decisions to be involved or engaged or retained.
I think people need to know where they are, right, for things to work like that. And there's an element where we don't. And I've spoken to people who work in the football industry, and they're just like, we don't understand how we're supposed to think about these games. Whereas in almost every other game, you can be like, we know where we're at, we know where we're going.
Well, even from an audience perspective, like I'm more tertiary than you. I don't really engage with the Champions League that much. For example, I didn't watch last night's game because I watched something else. It wasn't Traitors. I can't even remember. It was Dragon's Den. I was too tired. But speaking as like a fan who will engage with it when we're a bit deeper into the competition, or some game weeks and not others. I have no clue what's going on. Like it's almost completely inaccessible to me. And does it mean I wouldn't want to sit down and watch Arsenal Atletico Madrid? Not really, because that's like quite a fun affair. But it does, to Kaya's point, does take away like some of that understanding.
Also, the fact you have no clue doesn't really matter.
Sure,
it doesn't make it any worse. Like going back to the Traitors example at the start. Like if you watch the last 4 episodes of the Traitors, just in the game week model.
Sure. No spoilers now.
Hey, listen, I'm an episode behind, so no spoilers from you, please.
Okay, got it.
But you can't watch that without having the context of what's gone on before, because you wouldn't understand why people are making certain decisions, or why it matters more that this person might be a traitor or this person might be a faithful, that kind of thing. Whereas you can probably tune into the Champions League phase on match week 7 and you can pick it up pretty quickly what's happened, and it doesn't really matter that you've not seen the first 6. That's just my theory, and I'm sure people will disagree, and I can see why people would enjoy it, and I see John's point.
It's anti-narrative, right? That's the point, right? There's no through line there that you can really trace.
But then it's mega narrative later. Like, put it this way: if the Premier League were to abandon its existing pattern, and everyone played each other once, so you had half of the games, and then halfway through the season, you then go into a playoff for the second half of the season. would you think you have the same experience in the first half? Because I feel like, I'm experiencing more of US, like North American sports this year with what I'm doing for work. And I think that it seems to me, and I'm sure lots of like North American sports fans are going to type in the comments that I'm wrong, but it seems to me so far that there's a lot more investment in the regular season for NFL, for example, than there necessarily is for the NBA right at the beginning, and then the NBA gets more exciting as you get towards like the playoffs, and then really like the regular season is just about assessing teams, how they're going to play this season, whether they have any chance of making the playoffs or not. And then the secondary narrative becomes, once you know whether they will or not, do they have a chance of going very far? So I feel like there's a kind of natural division halfway through the season, which we don't really have. Our version of that is Arsenal are 4 points ahead after 7 games, something like that. Do we think they're going to win? Halfway through the season, the question is still the same. Do we think they're going to win? We have a top 4 or top 5 for Champions League. We have relegation. Like there are other interesting things. But I just wonder, like, do you think if they had the same format, you would still feel the same way?
But also, I think the meritocracy of it all is quite important in the sense that you mentioned the first half of North American sports seasons almost being like a pre-season for the end game, if you like, of the final season. But like last season, PSG were really poor until the last couple of games of the league phase, and they didn't really face any punishment for that. And we got some great football out of it in the knockout stages. They were the best team in Europe, and it was great. In 2025, they were the best team in Europe, but there was no punishment for the fact that they were not up to par in the early part of the season because none of it mattered.
Yeah.
They finished 15th.
Who knocked Arsenal out last season?
Fulham.
In when? Sorry.
I think
in what?
It was a joke, Steve. Don't He's not even paying attention.
Thinking ahead.
It's the cadence of it, I think, which is really interesting, right? Because obviously in this kind of format in the Champions League, it becomes more and more important the further you go on.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Premier League, you have the opposite thing, right? I mean, it ramps up, but then it ramps down. And we struggle at the end of seasons when it's like, okay, there's no relegation. Like the last few seasons, no real relegation race. Last season, Liverpool had won the league super early.
Yeah.
Suddenly that just completely like deflates any kind of narrative interest. Whereas I guess with this one, it does at least ramp it up towards the final point, which is what I guess the American model is based around, right?
Yeah.
This idea of the final pinnacle. But like you say, it means that there's almost no narrative threads here within the competition itself, right? So all of the narrative threads we've talked about, it's like, where does this tell us about where Arsenal are at in the wider picture, but it doesn't tell us anything about who's going to win the Champions League. And I think a lot of people find it quite hard to not anchor themselves in narratives. And so, which is maybe why I quite like it, because everything else we do is so mired in the narrative, isn't it?
I'd love to give it a try just for like that format style for like one in every, like the World Cup, like 1 in every 4 years of the Premier League should be the American playoff system style, where you still have you play, what would it be, 19 games? 19 games, right? And then the bottom 3 teams get relegated after 19, and the top 10 or the top 12 teams go into playoffs, and then the second half of the season is a knockout tournament. Once every 4 years, once every 10 years, Kaya. Once every 20 years, once every 1,000 years, once. Never.
As a man who's written a video about the Belgian league system, which has a playoff thing, you don't want it. Trust me.
I love the Belgian league system.
Yeah, you love it because you don't have teams involved in it. You don't have to work analysing it every week. I think if we did, we'd hate it a lot more.
Maybe that's true. Okay. Well, listen, Steve Hankey has just crossed this out, but I did want to read it. Steve, I know you want me to move on, but here we go. I just wanted to drop in this little additional fact about Arsenal's game before we move on to talk about them more in depth. I loved this news story yesterday. Here it is. Ahead of the game, Atletico de Madrid players had to travel back to their hotel to shower after training because at the Emirates, I don't know what
You've missed the word luxury.
Yeah,
I feel as though the word luxury here is important because what Steve is doing here is he's trying to editorialise what's going on.
He's trying to insert a pro-Arsenal narrative.
I think so.
Later, he says, "Boo f***ing who?"
Yeah.
But no, this was so funny to me. The Emirates, what was it? Just that he's not even included the key information. Steve, where's the key information of the news story here? Was it the water that wasn't working at the Emirates? Were the
hot
showers
water.
not?
There was no hot water in the away dressing room.
Yeah.
There was no hot water.
They hadn't turned the immersion heater on, so
And I don't know if it was you, John, or if it was Kai or someone joked. We should say it is a joke. But it did ring true that it's exactly the kind of thing Mikel Arteta would do, is play games ahead of a Champions League game, don't you think? It's a real David Brentism, that would be. I would absolutely love it if that was the case. I'm certain that it isn't.
But if it had happened to him, he would have made the players shower in cold water.
Yeah.
And be like, this is how you have to suffer sometimes.
This is high performance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, it worked, didn't it? Clearly, that trip back to the luxury hotel to shower and then a return again to the Emirates.
They were browbeaten.
They were absolutely, and then the game didn't even take place. They just agreed to lose 4-0. Here's what Steve wants me to talk about: Arsenal's left back position and the pouch of chaos. John, what does that mean?
I don't know. This is the first time I've ever seen these words associated.
Can I just say, if people listening at home think, Joe seems to be reading the plan a lot more than normal, Steve instructed me to read the plan more than normal.
Did he?
So yeah, no, you were here. You heard it. There was no private conversation.
No, wasn't it?
He said
I thought he'd sat you
he
down and was like, look, Joe.
He was very polite about it.
I spent a lot of time writing this running order.
Please
treat it with the respect that it deserves.
Ideally before you say it rather than just as you go.
You never said that. You just said read it.
I give my sort of constructive feedback in sort of little. It's a traditional radio craft that's moved over to the silly boys of YouTube. Little bits of information at a time.
Here's what he's written. You think Calafiore / what Arsenal encourage their left backs to do is incredibly important to Arsenal.
I feel that's a bit editorialized
kind of
as well.
A little bit confused. Do you understand what he wants you to talk about?
Yeah,
can you frame the question as well? Do my job for me.
Yeah, Photovision basically put out a data viz. Photovision are a company that use tracking data, and they can draw these really nice viz out that you might not usually. And what I just mean visualization. So basically a graph. Mm-hmm. And what they've got on this graph is it basically shows you the percentage of availability that certain players have receiving the ball in the pocket, the pouch, or whatever Steve called it.
He called it the pouch of chaos.
Yeah, when we talk about receiving the ball within the pocket, we just mean when you're in the opposition's defensive structure and you're available to receive the ball there, and then how many times they actually do receive the ball there. So inside the defensive structure as opposed to around. Yeah, exactly.
So if I was like Bukayo Saka stood on like the wing,
you're not in the pocket.
I'm not in the pocket. No. But if I'm Martin Odegaard and I'm stood in the number 10 role and the ball has come between two players to reach me, I'm in the pocket.
If you're inside that structure and you receive it, it's that. And Photovision put out a piece that talked a little bit about central midfielders basically, and there's a number of teams who use a sort of high volume receivers within the line. So Man City always want to try and receive the ball in those kind of situations. Mm-hmm. So Nico Gonzalez is high up on this. Caicedo is there as well for Chelsea. Gravenberch, and then I think it's Ethan Ampadu for Leeds, which is another story. But I just made a tweet about this and commented about what it tells us about what certain teams are trying to do in their possession phase. And I made the point that there's no Arsenal player who's showing up here, but actually Ricardo Calafiori has been doing that quite a lot so far this season, receiving in the pockets. Right. To which then Andy Forrester, who works for Photovision, ran the data to show for what it looks like for fullbacks, and Calafiori is off the charts on this. You can see it on the.
Yeah, I mean, listeners won't be able to see, but basically, if you imagine that there's two lines, one up and one across, and then where those two lines meet, there's a number of dots representing different players, and then up and to the right, about 100 miles, all on his own, is Calafiori. What does this tell us that he's so much better at doing than other fullbacks?
Not necessarily better, but
what does it tell us he's better at doing, John? That's what Steve's written.
But essentially what it's saying is he's way more available within those sorts of places to receive the ball within the pockets, but he's also receiving the ball a lot there as well.
Right.
Which got us to talking a little bit about why Arsenal are so great, which is why we've put it in here. Well, I think that's what it says on the running order. But I thought this was really interesting because there's a few things in modern football that actually make it quite important for you to introduce flexibility into your game plan, right? So if it's Chelsea and you're using Caicedo in that pivot role all the time in the defensive structure, it's very easy for opponents to orientate themselves around him from an out possession point of view. So they'll make sure that he's always covered, etc. When you start doing what Arsenal do, which is sometimes Calafiori will go into the pocket. Sometimes he's in the first line of that. Sometimes he's even beyond that, almost playing like a 10. Something we see from Cucurella as well, doing quite a lot. It becomes harder for opponents to actually track their opponents when you can start introducing a little bit more. Flexibility into your structure, which makes it harder for opponents, because a lot of teams are now trying to go man to man in that out of possession phase. So I thought this was quite interesting because I think actually using Calafiori in this way allows Arsenal to do a lot of different things. And I don't want to come across as though there's like a one-size-fits-all approach to build-up, because there very much isn't. And part of the reason why Arsenal are great is because they don't have a one-size-fits-all approach for build-up. Ahmed Walid wrote a piece about the Arsenal game last night where he talked about how Arsenal were able to use their fullbacks in the sort of fullback slots, which is, something that they might not necessarily do. They often have one of them inverting. That allows them to destabilize the Atletico, I hate saying that word, defensive structure in such a way that they can create spaces that they can then exploit. And you can do different things. You can have your fullback going inside and playing almost like a sort of Rodri role. You can have the Cucurella thing where you get really high and you sort of do an underlap and you almost become an attacking player.
It's worth saying just here that Calafiori has played the bulk of minutes at left back so far, but Lewis Skelly played the full 90 against.
That's right, yeah. And they used him yesterday in that, but there was still the possibility for them to flip players in position. So they still wanted
possibility.
Yeah, so Declan Rice would drop out into the left back spot. Miles Lewis Skelly would go into the pocket, and again, you've got that flexibility, but you've still got the retention of the structure, so your players are still well positioned as well. And we saw Lewis Skelly do the driving run, which led to the second goal. So yeah, I think that's the thing that Arsenal have right now that makes them so good in build-up, is they have just so many options for what they could do. They can play fullbacks in a traditional way. They can play them sort of deeper and closer to the centre-backs. They can have one inverting. They can invert from either side, right? And you can have players like Zubimendi dropping in between the two centre-backs and then pushing your full-backs up, or you can have Rice dropping into the full-back area and you can almost work situations where he can have space in front of him, receive the ball down the field and make those runs that he's so good at. So I think that's what is so interesting about this, that, bringing in someone like Calafiori brings in another element to them that gives them the flexibility to be so dangerous. And I think that's the way, certainly at the moment, modern football is going towards that, I guess, more tactically diverse approach that we've talked about so often. In part, that's because there's no real overarching meta that there used to be, where everyone was like, well, if you want to constantly win games, you play like Pep Guardiola. That approach is now no longer no longer effective, but certainly less effective than it was. Yeah. And so it's now just another. Yeah, it's just another format amongst other formats. It's another paradigm amongst other paradigms. So that means that I think we're seeing a lot more teams just happy to experiment with these different approaches because there's less at stake.
It's the name of your autobiography, isn't it? A paradigm amongst other paradigms. My time at Tifo Football. Yeah. The thing that strikes me listening to you, though, is thinking about the amount of turnover, specifically in that position for Arsenal. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the chap they bought from Celtic.
Kieran Tierney.
I keep thinking Tavernier, and it's not. I know it's not Tavernier.
They had a left back called Nuno Tavares, which might be where you're getting confused.
So there's Tavares, there was Tierney, then they bought Zinchenko in that summer, where they also bought Gabriel Jesus, and they were, they suddenly wanted to do a lot more Manchester City stuff.
They've had Tomiyasu, they've had Kivior playing in that role.
Tomiyasu and Kivior as well. And
Timber's played there a bit as well.
And now we're seeing Calafiori, who initially we knew could play in this position, but we thought maybe that would be played as a centre back as well. And Lewis Skelly. It's worth saying, like, if Arsenal do win the league this season, I think that there's two things that are true.
I'm interested to see where this is going.
Yeah,
I think
there are two truths that relate to this. One is that, like, it's taken an awful lot of squad turnover to work out how to do this. Right, it's taken a long time to get there. No, I think
you can't deny that. Surely you can't deny that.
No, I'll explain it.
The other truth is, like, it's super impressive that Mikel Arteta has managed to achieve high results all the way throughout and has still been able to create a team with this much squad turnover that feels the same as not completely in the way they play, but feels like the same ethos, that has the same chemistry. Like, it feels like the same whole that it was a few years ago, whereas they play incredibly differently to how they did even 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. So I think it would be both to their credit and both also an example of, like, how much work it takes when you think about a team like Manchester United, who are off the ball and have to return to become champions in 20 years. It's a great example of how much work it takes to get it right, even for the best managers and the best teams.
Yeah, and I totally agree with. Actually,
I won him back over there.
No, you did. Yeah, well done. I enjoyed that.
Little dangle over the side. Bring him back.
You said some nice things, there, didn't you? And he was like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, that's just how you win me over in any argument. Basically, what I was just going to add to your thing was, all the left backs they've had in those positions, almost all of them have been quite severely injury prone.
Sure.
Which is part of why there's had to be such a big turnover. Like Zinchenko regularly couldn't stay fit. Tomiyasu couldn't stay fit. Timber had a big ACL. Tierney was very injury
prone. Sounds like you need to get better at scouting, is what I'm saying.
Maybe that's a fair question.
Diligence a bit better, I think.
Yeah, you do diligence indeed. But it's a fair critique.
It's quite good having a fan here, because like that's exactly the kind of criticism that we get from people in the YouTube comments, where we make a broad sweeping point and then someone who watches every minute of every game goes, I think you'll find they're all injured and this is exactly why.
Yes.
It's a very fair point. Thanks for adding
That's all right.
I think that another point to add as well is that Had
you finished adding yours, Kyle?
No, but I'll let John go.
No, let him finish his point first and then you can respond.
No, I was just going to add to that.
It better be good now, though.
Yeah. As someone who watches every single minute of also Mikel Arteta's press conferences as well, one word that comes up a lot, it's made me sound very cool.
Is hot water.
Well, yes. Plumbing tips. Is unpredictability.
Right.
That's something that he's very, very
That's
big
a word
on.
that he uses.
It's a word that he uses a lot. It's a word that he's very big on. Behind the scenes, it's a word that he's very big on. And also you talk about trying to change, and they do a big review at the end of every season. They come up with new ways, and they call it, internally, I think they call it upgrading the system is sort of what they call it, which is a sort of a high performance kind of phrasing that was the kind of thing that gets Mikel Arteta laughed at. But the unpredictability has always been his kind of thing that he's wanted from his squad, and kind of having like a Swiss Army knife squad who can see any potential challenge and find a way of dealing with it, which I think is now almost what Arsenal have pretty much. You know, once they get the injured players back, they will definitely have it. And they've been phased, like I know we've sort of joked about the quality of the teams they've beaten in this run where they built up a bit of momentum, but Newcastle, West Ham, Fulham, Atletico Madrid are very different challenges, and Arsenal have found ways to deal with every single one of them quite convincingly. And that's because if you're an opposition analyst trying to understand what Arsenal are going to do, a bit like what John was saying before, you don't 100% know what they're going to do. And you know basics, but it's very difficult to predict how they're going to do what they're going to do. And that's why they're such a team that seem to be, causing so many problems for teams right now.
Well, when you say Fulham and Atletico Madrid in the same sentence, there's only one thing a person of a certain age is thinking of now. Yes. What a great time that was.
The Europa League final, right?
Yes. I was also thinking, you were just mentioning that the Arteta's kind of return word is unpredictability.
It's one of them, yeah.
It's one of them. What do they call those graphs, John, where they have like the words a different size depending on how? I don't know what they call them.
No, I don't know.
There'll be one big word in the middle, and then the words.
It's just a frequency. It's like a frequency.
Yeah,
graph,
like
right?
So the
more you use a word,
volume,
the more,
the bigger. Yeah. I was thinking, what would mine be? I genuinely think it might be.
Yeah,
I think that might be the biggest word in the middle of my word. What would yours be?
What do I say all the time?
You say so many. The
big question. I say something about
you say the big question. Yeah,
I think the big question
is
yeah.
I have a very clear memory of in your first or second week here helping you plan for a Spurs video, helping the structure of it, and I said at this point you should say, "Here's the big question," and then every single video since then. You also do that thing that I've only ever heard a couple of other people do. They all went to Oxford. Is you say "is" twice next to each other.
Yeah, the big thing.
Is.
Yeah,
it's only the people on politics podcasts.
And then if you start the next question with you've got to have a verb in that.
Well, you should just be ready to say what the question is.
I just respect the colon. All right.
Good lord. Okay.
So I don't know. What would Kaya's be? It's interesting how Steve lets us talk forever about Arsenal. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, you haven't intervened once. Yeah.
That would be
I
his
you
thing.
crack on with the changing media landscape thing a bit too long as well.
That's true.
I'm more generous on Wednesdays.
Last thing on Arsenal. I think we're all aligned here. I think
it's a very Mikel word.
Where's this going?
I think we're all aligned. They're going to win the Premier League, right?
You can't. Yeah, I'm not going to say.
Look, I put it in my Tifo table prediction. I put Arsenal. I put Arsenal when Liverpool were winning. I put Arsenal when Man City. I thought them even after Man City had that first great performance against Wolves. I mean, I haven't seen anything so far to suggest to me that it isn't going to happen. I'm happy to put my cards on the table.
Yeah,
I think they're going to win the league.
I went with Arsenal at the beginning of this, and I felt almost like a little bit. I don't know. I felt under pressure saying that because I think everyone was like, well, obviously Liverpool are going to be up there and City have spent all this money. And I don't know. It felt to me that last season, the problems that Arsenal had were like almost external. And I still think they have the potential to have these problems. Like, I don't think that there tends to be like a lot of conversations where it's like, oh, we beat Fulham, we beat Newcastle, we lost them last time, and it's like, yeah, you did, and you could have won them last time round, and I wouldn't have been that surprised. it is definitely a consistency problem with Arsenal, and that consistency comes down to how ruthless are they going to be in drawing game states at the beginning of games, right? And again, we saw it yesterday. It's like set piece, fly, and that happens all the time. It's not about how many you win games by. It's about whether or not you get into those winning game states in the first place. And I think that has meant that over the last few seasons, Arsenal have been up there amongst the favourites for the league anyway, right? And it's just so happened that they haven't done it. Whereas I feel like now, they've got better. They've got more diverse. They're able to play more directly. They're able to play more players in that Swiss Army knife way that you said. The other teams around them have dropped off a little bit. It's their season to lose, which is funny to say, isn't it? Because if they do, sorry,
you'd also be wrong though. So you know,
no, but I definitely do think that this is
they should
everything
win.
Is they surely will, but
surely.
That's the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? And that's football.
Kaya, if you weren't afraid that you were going to somehow curse it or something, surely you would agree.
I just use any chance when I'm asked about predictions for the season to remind myself and people that Alex Barker had Arsenal in third. And that's all I'm willing to say on the matter, yeah.
Incidentally, I don't know if listeners have noticed that, but because we did Points Are Bad all of last week and Alex Barker is unavailable next week, there'll be no screwing me over when I'm not here. I've ensured that I can't get
what's
barkered.
Happened to you.
Yeah. That's right.
It's a long season, Joe.
I won't get barkered. I won't be barkered. Anyway.
It's worth saying, I think Arsenal deserve to win something this season. I think it's been too long that they've been so good and haven't won anything. And I agree that it's very funny if they don't, but at the same time...
I think what you're saying is funny because it's true, but also it puts so much pressure on.
No, but they'll still be able to win something next season, but I think it's remarkable that they haven't won anything so far, and so
thanks, man.
It gets to a point where you just think, "Come on, surely this year."
You forget the 2020 FA Cup. Come on,
come on, Steve. We're talking proper football here.
That Carabao Cup is going to hit like you would not believe.
Oh, baby!
You're going to do a double, aren't you? Like the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, and they're going to make loads of it. And you're like, "See, we said the double was coming our way."
Okay, well there we go. Arsenal are going to win the Premier League. I'm glad that we've decided.
Kaya Kaynak breaking news. He revealed he believes that's going to happen.
Kaya Kaynak breaks silence on Arsenal Premier League stance.
Well, hopefully after the break, Kaya Kaynak will break silence on Man Utd's goalkeeper. Can't wait for that. Until then, enjoy whatever you are advertised. Well, welcome back from the break. That was a good chat on Arsenal. Now let's talk about Manchester United's new goalkeeper, Senne Lammens, who had a very impressive, I would say, performance over Liverpool at the weekend. We didn't have time to touch on it on Monday, so we figured we'd talk about it today instead. It's only 2 games so far, we should say. The first was against Sunderland, I think, in which he kept a clean sheet. And it's worth saying, by the eye test, watching him against Liverpool, he seemed pretty confident. He made a couple of interesting decisions. I couldn't work out whether they were smart or not. But I don't know. He fits my specification of a goalkeeper, which is that they must look 20 years older than they are. Do you know what I mean? He could be 40 years old. Have you looked at a picture of him?
Someone said to me that he looks a lot like Magnus Carlsen, the chess guy.
He does look a bit like Magnus Carlsen. I can see that, absolutely. Well, anyway, I figured it'd be fun to have this conversation, partly because I thought he had a good game, but also because there was some interesting stuff around the time of his signing. The main focus, anyway, was around how many goals that he potentially prevents from being scored. There was a lot of conversation about that at the time, including in a piece written by Karl Anker and Matt Piotrowski. I'll summarize the quote here. Basically, he had the second best post-shot expected goals differential. It was plus 14.5 in the Belgian Pro League last season. I think he might have been third highest in Europe as well, we've just discovered. Third overall in Europe's top 8 leagues. So in layman's terms, there's good reason to believe that he prevented Antwerp from conceding more than a dozen additional goals last season, John, which seems crazy high, and people were excited about that. When the news came out that he was signing for Manchester United. It might be slightly more complicated at transpires.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different things we can say about this. In terms of post-shot expected goals, I don't know if people really understand what that is.
Can you explain?
Yeah. So everyone knows what expected goals are by now, right?
But what's the post shot?
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what it is, right? Because an XG model will basically take a shot before you've hit it and tell you the likelihood of that going in based on a number of variables like location, ball height, what kind of shot it is, etc. It isn't really interested in how good the shot is. That's where post-shot expected goals comes in, because it's basically saying after the shot's been taken, how does that change the probability of a chance going in? So like a nice example of this might be if you have a shot from outside the box, it's going to be a low XG chance, right? It's going to be 0.03, let's say. That means 3% likelihood of going in. If you hit that chance really well and it's going top corner, suddenly the probability of it going in jumps right up.
Just to bring some of our audience along, could you say that again, but say top bins?
So bins. Okay, so shot outside the box.
Yeah.
Belter, pinger, bins.
Top bins.
Bins.
Yeah, just bins.
Yeah, bins.
Have we efficiented top out of top bins?
Yeah, bins.
Wow, it's just bins now.
I don't know, but that's what I'm going to say. But essentially,
bins.
Yeah, what we're doing then is we're saying after the shot's been struck, it changes the probability. That gives us a good way of saying, okay, this is a decent shot. If we aggregate all of the saves that a goalkeeper makes, we can then work out how many, based on that figure, how many shot goals you would expect them to have conceded and how many they actually conceded, and work out the difference. So the post-shot expected goal differential is that figure, right? It's like we expected this amount of these shots to go in.
Yeah.
In fact, only this amount went in.
So in this case, to Senne Lammens, we expected that there would be 14 and a half more goals than there were against Antwerp.
That's the top line. Then you have to start digging into some of the stuff that's going on under the surface here.
Behind the under the surface.
Behind the under the surface.
Yeah.
One of which is that there's a lot
bins.
of keepers in the Belgian Pro League last year who were in that top 8 in the list of goals, post-expected goals prevented.
What you're saying is there was a suspicious number of Belgians in the top of the European
so there's
league.
some questions about whether or not there's something going on just per the data.
Yeah. Are you suggesting corruption in Belgium?
Not at all.
Thank God for that. I thought for a second I got worried, Steve.
I don't know what's going on in terms of like the data gathering and the way that they log the data. Whatever. It may be something like that.
I know it's just
I'm
funny.
Speculating.
However you talk about it just sounds like I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know what
I think there might be. Is that okay, Steve?
I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Sweet as the Belgian chocolate, you might say. They've sweetened the data, maybe.
I don't think they've sweetened it. I just think that there may be just a discrepancy in the way that they gather it, and that's led to inflation, right? The other thing to say is that Lammens has actually good post-expected shot data already this season in the Premier League. Now, that comes with a caveat. He's played 2 90s, right? So he's played 2 games.
Yeah.
But he's already got the highest per 90 post-shot expected goals prevented numbers
in a small little sample size.
Yeah. And it's obviously you would expect that to even out maybe over the course of a season. But that does suggest that he is a decent shot stopper on the basis of that small sample size. So
great.
I think what you take away from this, and post-shot expected goals models are very noisy at this point, by which we mean it's just very hard to read anything into them. So what I would take away from that is he's a decent shot stopper, which I think on the basis of what Manchester United fans have had to put up with in the last few seasons, they'll probably be quite happy with. And I think on top of that, you say, well, it's not just the shot stopping that's been good. In the last couple of seasons, it's felt like Manchester United have been so vulnerable from corners.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's a bit more commanding in his box from that. And then I guess the final thing to talk about is just in terms of his distribution, he's kicked long. That's basically all he's done. 38, I think, attempted long passes in his first game against Sunderland, and 44 in the game against Liverpool. I think that takes a huge amount of pressure off him, really, in terms of the scrutiny on goalkeepers. Because and this has got nothing to do with like the rights and wrongs of playing in a certain way. But if your manager says we're happy just going long here, and you don't piss about with the ball, you just get rid of it as soon as it comes, and then the press starts. I think it means that you're in quite a nice situation, because you can I can focus on the things I'm good at. I can dominate my box, my handling stuff, and my shot stopping. And then when it comes to the in possession stuff, we're just going long. It's part of the approach. So I think he's in a good spot to maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that the last couple of Manchester United goalkeepers have had. So I think Manchester United fans should be pretty pleased. But the question then comes with like, what happens if they do stop going long at every available opportunity, then we'll get a better sense of how good he's going to be on the ball. But yeah, for now, I think they should be happy.
He certainly looks good, doesn't he, Kaya? I remember that one chance that Isak had against him where he didn't come out of his box, and there was conversation afterwards about whether maybe he did that on purpose. I thought he was maybe poorly positioned initially, but he made the save. Maybe it was a good thing.
Yeah, there's no stat for vibe for the goalkeeper. There's no
post goalkeeper vibe.
Yeah, post shot expected chill.
Yeah,
which I think he brings to the Man United defense. It's funny because they were also linked to Emi Martinez, who a bit like Andre Onana is a more vibrant character, should we say, in terms of he's someone who is very animated at the back, sort of invites a lot of attention. Whereas I think Lammens is he seems just a bit more of a just gets on with his work, is not too fussed with trying to do anything too crazy. I mean, again, like Jon was saying, small sample size, so we can't judge him too much so far, but he just seems like a kind of what Man United needed in their goalkeeping position that they haven't had, which is someone who's just a bit calm and a bit secure. And they've not had that for years, probably since David De Gea left.
Yeah.
And even with David De Gea, there was always the scrutiny towards the end of his time about his ability with his feet, as much as he was an amazing shot stopper.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's brought a bit of calm back to the Manchester United backline. And people like Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, and Matthijs de Ligt on Sunday against Liverpool at least looked a lot calmer having that presence behind them. And yeah, I think it does make a big difference.
I like as well that he has like what I would describe as a Central European haircut, by which I mean there's no distinguishable hairstyle. He simply has hair. Do you know what I mean? It's just there on top of his head.
I don't know what you mean.
You don't know.
It's neat, but it doesn't feel like it's had a trim.
It doesn't feel like it's had a trim. Yeah, absolutely.
It feels like Lego hair where you just plop it on.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. If Lego hair could be a bit more, if it had a bit of flex in it, Lego hair. We've been playing a new Lego video game,
haven't
Jon.
we? Yeah.
It's the Lego Party game, Steve, and it sounds like it's for children. Probably is. I think it's accessible for children. I'm sure children would enjoy playing it.
We'll certainly bring the maturity of children to the game when we're playing it.
Yeah, and I had a great fun time on, I can't remember, a night earlier this week, because Steve was convinced that the game was against him. He kept having to partner up with a bot. And the bot was.
I did get screwed over a few times.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Part of you tried to engender that narrative for sure that you got screwed over.
Sure. Was you partnering up with a bot like when in PE someone has to like partner up with the teacher because no one wants to be partnered with them? Is that what's going on here?
Well, yeah, obviously not. No,
if the bot was an adult version of like a child that was actually really good at everything.
Oh, okay, sorry, I've misunderstood.
This would be more like if you.
Something got cut,
and it was bad. Anyway, but this bit won't get cut, Jon, because this is the bit where I ask you if you can tell me if there are any other Premier League keepers that we should keep an eye on in terms of the post-shot expected goals statistic. I mean, basically, who else is good at this apart from Senne Lammens?
Well, the people who've got good numbers. I mean, Dean Henderson, I think, is probably the standout so far this season because he's played all of his minutes, all of the available minutes for Palace.
Are they allowed to call him Hendo, or does Jordan Henderson own Hendo? What do you think?
You can own that.
No. If you're Henderson, you could be Hendo, right?
Dino.
Sure.
He can be Dino.
They probably call him Dino.
You think they call him Dino?
Do you know the thing that annoys me is when people have nicknames that are longer than their actual names? I feel like the shortening.
Yeah.
Jono.
Yeah. Do you know what my nickname was?
Divino.
It was Big Joe, and I was the only Joe.
I mean, Big Joe's okay, I think, because it's
because you're not that big as well.
Were you Giant Kaya? Was that there?
I've never really had a nickname. I feel like Joe might be about to give me one based on how he's looking at me.
No, we don't do nicknames anymore.
But yeah, Dino is right up there. He's second on the list of post-expected goals per 90. James Trafford actually has good numbers, but he's obviously had a much smaller sample size.
Traffordo.
Yeah.
James-O.
If you're going to go through every one of these names and add the letter O at the end.
Jimmo.
I'm going to tap out. This
who else is there?
Robert
Jon?
Roofs.
Robert Roofso?
Don't get going on his name. We've already had to cut one. Woof. He's played 8 games as well, and he's just under Dean Henderson. But to put this in context, all of these guys are way below the post-shot expected goals prevented levels that Lammens is on.
Who's
already.
got the worst, though?
Do we want to do this? Yeah. Do you want to guess?
I mean, I can see, so that wouldn't be very good. Can you see?
Do you want to guess?
I can also see.
Oh, Steve, can
Steve,
you see?
do you want to guess?
I mean, I can also. We're all looking at the same script, guys.
Should we ask the audience to guess?
put in the comments below.
No. Oh yeah.
What you think the worst goalkeeper is.
Yeah, and then when you see a bunch of people answer with the same wrong name, you'll know it's because they asked AI and AI didn't know.
Yeah.
But AI pretended to know because that's how AI is designed to work. AI. I think we'll all be fine for a bit more, lads.
I think the worrying thing that I'm seeing right now is that in the bottom 4, 2 of them are Leeds United goalkeepers. I think we should move on.
Super. Okay, well, that's goalkeeping. What about forests, though? In fact, what's the singular of the plural forests?
Tricky trees.
It's tricky trees, that's right. Forests, of course, we mentioned this briefly on...
Kaya's looking confused, but you were here on Monday as well. So you were part of this conversation. Yeah,
it's okay to still be confused about tricky trees. We mentioned this on Monday's episode, that there was a possibility that a conversation with Sean Dyche might be happening. It did happen. And now he's been appointed. So, of course, it's familiar territory for the former Burnley and Everton manager. As Paul Taylor, the Athletic's Paul Taylor, has written on the website, Dyche, quote, has been known to occasionally frequent a few of the pubs close to Nottingham Castle, not far from the famous Robin Hood statue. Does Steve Hankey want us to engender some kind of mythical comparison here? Is Sean Dyche the new Robin Hood, Kaya?
Sure. Yeah. I just feel like
who would be rich and he would steal from?
Robbing points from the Premier League.
I was going to say Arsenal. Surely, like he's got form. He did that with Everton. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
was that his first game?
I can't remember, honestly.
I think it was his first game.
Maybe. I'm trying to think of who would be the Sheriff of Nottingham. Who's football Sheriff of Nottingham?
Oh, so the Sheriff of Nottingham character is the evil character that's trying to steal England away from King John while he's away crusading, presumably burning another King Richard. Well, whoever it was, they were doing something terrible.
Crusade.
I think if by analogy you're taking exactly what they did and comparing it, it's not going to work.
It's a dangerous
because there's
game
only one
least,
guy who did that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, this was in there to illustrate that part of Nottingham, is a lovely part of town. Some really good, lovely pubs and stuff, including the old Trip to Jerusalem, which was founded around the time of First Crusade, 1092-ish. It's just a lovely part of town, so I can understand why Sean Dyche
there's a
pub around there.
Pub in Burnley that's called the Royal Dyche, which has been named after Sean Dyche.
Really?
Yeah, near.
I would hope it was
Moor.
Named after him.
It would be funny if it wasn't.
It's a strange coincidence otherwise.
Yeah. I also find it weird that we've mentioned a castle and not inevitably brought up Warwick Castle. Nottingham Castle's come up there, and we've missed the opportunity to go.
Have you ever been to Nottingham Castle?
No, I've never been to Nottingham Castle. I did
What's your top 5 list of castles?
Yes.
I don't know the names of that many of them. I've been to one twice.
Well, do you know where they were? Because if you name where they were and then put castle in front of them, I reckon you're there.
There's one, and people will be able to tell me. You might even be able to tell me which one this is, right? I went on a short stay break with my friend Adam, and we drove south out of London in his car. I don't know where we went. We booked an Airbnb. I don't know where it was.
Was it a long way?
No, it was like within an hour and a half of London. So it was in the south.
Kent? It was in Kent.
It was down.
Leeds Castle is
when
in
you
Kent.
look at the map, we went down.
Was it in the middle of a big pond?
No.
That's
there was
Leeds
beautiful
Castle.
gardens there, though, and it was a Henry VIII castle. There were many Henry VIII things inside.
Hever Castle?
It could have been. Don't know.
Which is the one that's on the Thames out on the way out of London?
It's not. It wasn't that close. It was
Rochester?
Is that Hampton Court Palace?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It's much it was much further out than that, but it was beautifully designed. You could go inside, and it had recreations.
Go inside.
You could go inside the castle. Well, by which I mean it wasn't a ruin. It was. Okay. It was still a castle, essentially not in operation, but it had figurines of elderly past ancient royals in there. This is where they did a poo. Here's where they would bathe.
They do that a lot, don't they, in castles? So
Yeah. Now look at the toilet, and you go, "That's a toilet." Yeah. Like the one that they killed the old Lannister man on in
What
Game
would
of Thrones.
active castle be in your mind's eye?
What would an active castle be? It would be keeping you out for sure. My moat would be full of robotic alligators that were programmed specifically to chase you down. And of course, it would be keeping John as far away as possible. You would try to siege. You'd probably make a good sieger.
Do you think I would besiege well?
I think you probably would. Yeah, I think you would. You'd focus a lot on trying to stop the food coming in and out of the castle, and that would really work.
I would focus
well
on the
me.
weaknesses.
Yeah. He needs to eat.
Out of possession stuff is basically besieging, isn't it?
That's right. It's been 2 days and he hasn't had a cornetto. He'll be out soon.
Yeah.
Not to worry. What are we talking about? Oh, the tricky trees.
Your favourite castles was what I was.
Oh, I don't know. Warwick's at the top. I like that one, the name of which I don't know. I don't like ruin castles. Not interested in the ones where there's nothing inside. I still want to go inside.
You didn't go to that castle when we did our Scotland road trip, did you?
No, it was far too far away, though, wasn't it?
No, we walked there, but it was too ruined for you, apparently.
It's because there was nothing inside. It was just ruins. Once it's ruins, it's no longer a castle. It's just old bricks.
That's true.
Do I care about stone? No, I don't care about stone. I care about art. I want to see the art that they have hanging in these places.
You don't consider architecture art interesting?
No, I don't. Not interested. Come at me. Isn't your dad an architect?
My dad is an architect, yeah.
Him. Nothing wrong with your dad. It's just that he's not doing art.
He's been asking me when should I start listening to the podcast. So maybe this is the episode. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Kaynak.
Yeah.
Now, what are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about Dyche.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. I mean, it seems like Forest are no longer going to be relegated, Kaya.
Yeah, it's weird. I have sympathy with Ange because my first day at Tifo, you tried to instantly sack me. Because I came in and was taller than you, so
you didn't even get 39 days. Really?
No, I didn't even get that far. So I feel a bit of sympathy for Ange, and also, well, hopefully, unlike my stint at Tifo, it was quite obvious it was never going to work for Ange. Maybe you'll disagree.
Yeah, you've made your way through probation. You're fine.
That's true. Well, yeah, that's true.
It is a lot harder to fire him now.
No,
that's true, legally speaking.
So I can say whatever the I want now. So
no, that's not. That's not true.
In fact, that's the easiest way for us to get rid of you.
I also I felt myself trying to hold myself back from saying because I still was worried I'd say something too bad. Anyway,
what a nice guy.
Yeah,
you can't even imagine a bad thing to say.
No. Basically, I feel sorry for Ange because him coming in after Nuno, who is a more, let's say, pragmatic style of manager. Coming in with no full weeks on the training ground. He didn't have a single one apart from the international break. To try and impose that specific style was always going to be very difficult. He actually, in terms of a lot of the numbers they were putting up, they weren't that bad, but they conceded 10 goals from set pieces in 39 days. I think it was it 8 games or 9 games? I can't remember the exact number of games, but it was a lot of set piece goals. 8 is what Steve's signaling to me through the castle walls. So that's, I think, that was Ange's big fall down. And there's also, this speaks to quite a lot of uncertainty in what Forest are trying to do with their recruitment because there was, I think you mentioned this on the other episodes, maybe you didn't, I can't remember, but there was basically a lot of attacking talent that weren't even in the squad. Amari Hutchinson isn't even in their European squad, and I think he's their record signing or second record signing. So Sean Dyche is coming in, and I don't think they'll get relegated because he'll be able to basically go back to a lot of the things that were working for Nuno last year and maybe...
Really not that long ago.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, not even last year, a couple of months ago. And that should be sort of within the player's muscle memory. It's just for him, I think, managing a bigger squad full of players who haven't been brought to play the style of football that he wants to play. And obviously the pressure that comes at Nottingham Forest to pick a certain type of team or play a certain type of way that I think he may have to deal with. But he strikes me as the kind of guy who might not be too bothered by that and will just play the way he wants to play. And I think, to be honest, as long as it's getting results, I think he'll be fine with that. I would actually quite like to see how far he goes in the Europa League. I think that would be really fun.
I was going to say, we're going to get Dyche on the continent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of exciting, isn't it? I assume he's never managed in
Burnley
Europe before.
got to the Europa League playoffs once and they played Aberdeen, so they didn't go very far.
That doesn't count.
No.
JJ Bull doesn't have to be here for me to say that doesn't count. Yeah. He could go quite in the Europa League. He could go quite far, John.
Yeah. Could he? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying something aloud so that you speak.
The thing that I was interested in was we're watching Nuno's West Ham get battered by Keith Andrews' Brentford on Monday.
Right.
And
is Nuno the West Ham manager now?
Yeah. And that's the weirdest thing about this, right? Is that
sorry, when did that happen?
When Graham Potter got sacked?
Earlier.
Graham Potter, who's now Sweden boss.
So I knew that Graham Potter was the Sweden boss, but I didn't realise that Nuno was the West. Maybe I did know that, and I've just forgotten.
If you look at that now, it looks like the person who's lost out is Nuno, right? It's like he's gone from Forest that was working out for him to now being the coach of a team where it looks like they're in a very real relegation battle,
bigger stadium.
Whereas now Sean Dyche gets to go into Forest with a team that probably suits him quite nicely and probably will take the plaudits for pulling them out of the relegation zone. So
it sounds though like maybe West Ham will be a more an environment in which there will be less
pressure,
surprise. I don't know. I'm trying to think like
volatile context,
potentially less volatility.
Yeah, I think it will be.
I would say also like that West Ham squad is not bad, right? That's a pretty good squad. I feel as though with a good, as you know, to use Kaya's word, pragmatic manager like Nuno Espirito Santo, I would feel fairly confident that they'll stop the rot.
I guess so. I think the game on Monday was a weird one because they didn't play Juve, who has been one of their better players. They didn't play Wan-Bissaka either. They had Andy Irving in midfield. They had Oliver Scarles playing right back, and Kyle Walker-Peters at left back, and and Souček as well in midfield. It just sort of felt like a very I don't know. I mean, it was a team that simply couldn't compete physically on the day against Brentford, and against teams like that, Brentford are just going to grind, and they did, and they're unlucky to not score more. So I think that's the worrying thing is when you look at that squad from the point of view of Nuno, and you say, you've got Paquetá and Bowen. I think it's Somerville actually up front.
Sure.
And you're like, what you expect this team to do is, absorb a lot of pressure and then hit in counters, and they weren't able to do that. And I think, I guess that's the worrying thing is that if Nuno can't get his football going there, then they really are in a lot of trouble.
They're a little bit adrift already. I mean, 1 win, 1 draw, 6 losses of those 8 games. I was just going to ask you, now that we're 8 games into the Premier League, which teams we think are going to be relegated. I mean, Wolves are like dead last. They've got 2 points, yet to win. Only 2 draws, 6 losses. They've scored 5 goals and they've conceded 16. I don't know. We sat and watched them together on the first day of the season, John. They were so frustrating. We talked about this a bit at the time because they did create chances, but they just couldn't finish it at any of those chances. I found that a very, very frustrating watch. They seem absolutely rooted. And West Ham in 19th on 4 points, Nottingham Forest in 18th on 5 points. This is, again, like only a tiny thing. But basically, until you get to first, where Arsenal are 3 points ahead of Manchester City at the top, every other team from 2nd to 17th are separated by like one. There's no more jumps than 1 point anywhere. And then you get to the relegation zone where there's a jump of 2. So I wonder if Nottingham Forest, West Ham United, Wolverhampton Wanderers, they could just start to drift backwards a little bit more.
I think they're definitely all in the conversation. I expect Forest to probably be okay with Dyche and the quality of players they've got. West Ham I'm a bit more worried about because the squad just doesn't really feel like it's right for Nuno. Wolves, I think I'd be amazed if they get out of this. But then I think you've got to think about the teams above them, and it's Burnley, Leeds. Brentford and on my table have jumped up because they've got 3 more points, but
it's hard. It's
probably those 5 teams.
Sunderland are in 7th on 14 points already. It's hard unless you see a cataclysm drop off. It's hard to see them re-entering the race. And then once you get to 15th, you're talking about teams like Fulham, who will absolutely collect points over the course of the season. Newcastle United in 14th on 9 points, like they'll definitely improve as they go. Aston Villa are now far away from that bottom half. They're adding more points and they're going to get better. Everton, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Sunderland, like there are no other relegation candidates, are there? Are we really just talking about the current bottom 5? Leeds, Burnley, Forest, West Ham, Wolves?
Yeah, with maybe the caveat on Sunderland that, they could potentially have that drop off. But I think those are the 5 that you've got to maybe Brentford did get the win against West Ham, which is a relegation 6-pointer, right? So I would be amazed if they eventually do get drawn into that. But I think, those 6 probably for me, it will be 3 teams from them.
In which case, if I were to press you, and then I'm going to press you as well, Kaya, to say you think Forest are going to be fine, which of those teams above is going to drop in?
Burnley.
Kaya, what do you think?
Were you going to say?
I was going to say Burnley, yeah.
Okay. I think of the 3, I'll go for 3 teams who'll go down. I'll stick with Wolves, although I think Vitor Pereira is actually a good manager and could get them up. Burnley and Leeds are the three I'm going to go for.
West Ham and Forest.
After all the nice things I said about Arsenal in this episode. And there he is. Didn't even stab me in the back, stabbed me in the front.
John, as we know from YouTube comments, you're not a fan of any team. You just hate all teams. You're biased against all teams.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, great. Where do we go now, Steve?
We go to the end.
We go home.
Yes.
Excellent work. Well, Kaya, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Jon Mackenzie, thank you very much.
Cheers.
A completely unadulterated view of Steve Hankey. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be back. Actually, I'm not here next week or the week after. Yeah, I'm back in. So what do we got? Next week, we've got JJ hosting and also a little bit of the following week. John, you're on holiday next week as well, aren't you? So you won't be
being
here.
on holiday makes it sound a lot more glamorous than what it is.
What are you doing? Nothing.
Something somewhere else, yeah.
You're doing something somewhere else.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, JJ next week, John the week after in terms of hosting duties.
There you go. How exciting. How exciting for you. I can't wait for you to do a worse job than I can at this. And then for me to come back and say, see, I'm good. Yeah?
Yeah, it's true. It's like when a manager plays a player out of position and then everyone gets mad at them. I'm just going to be like, well, I was poorly platformed, badly profiled, misprofiled, I think is the word that they use.
We can both blame Steve.
Yeah, I think it's Steve's fault. He's the guy with whom the buck stops.
That's true, yeah.
I wish that were true.
The buck stops.
Goodbye.